Hannah. Hi, Hannah. So I'm gonna make achar for you tonight. Everything that you need, you should get ready before you start actually cooking. Because once you need it kind of quickly, especially with the tomatoes. I recommend that you take the lids off beforehand because the line between cooking your spices and everything and burning them is really, really fine. So you want to be able to get the tomatoes in there and stop the spices cooking immediately. So have the lids off and ready to go. Other than that, you're going to need olive oil, white vinegar, fenugreek seeds, lots and lots of ginger. We've got a whole bunch food processed there, probably several cups. Same amount of garlic, a couple cups. I use sriracha now instead of jalapenos just because it's easier. Couple of cans of tomatoes. I usually use crushed. Today we're using whole tomatoes just because that's what we had. We'll use an immersion blender to make them pureed afterwards, but it doesn't matter for right now. And you will also need, let's see, mustard, powdered mustard. Very important. All right, so I turned we have an electric stove. You might have flame heat. With electric stove, you want to go a little bit higher. If you have propane, you probably want it on like a low to medium flame. With this, it's fine to have it a little bit higher, like, 5, 6, 7, 8 in there. So I'm gonna actually measure stuff for your benefit. I don't ever measure myself, but so I might have to redirect as I figure out how much of stuff I actually need. Let's see. So a half cup looks about right. So I'm gonna use a half cup of olive oil, and this is for a double batch of achar. You can cut these amounts in half if you're making one with just one big can of tomatoes, and these are like the 12-ounce cans. And then I'm going to add to that, my guess is probably about a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds. Again, let me just see what it looks like. Little bit more, like a half a teaspoon of fenugreek. So not that much. And then we're just gonna kind of wait for that to start to sizzle and bubble. And if Thea can get in here, you can start to see some of the little bubbles forming around the edges of the seeds. It's almost like they're boiling. And they start to get a little bit more darker brown or golden brown instead of that light blonde color that they are when you put them in. And you kind of just want to let them sizzle a little bit. You don't want to get them to black, but you want to get them to a nice brown. Yeah. Just starting to see them boil a little bit in there. Nice zoom job, Thea. Yeah, see those little boily guys over there? Yep, so that is what I mean by popping fenugreek right there. That's what's happening.
That's making the sounds.
Yes. So as soon as that starts to happen, we're going to add our ginger and our garlic. So I'm going to measure out my ginger here just so I get some sort of idea of how much I'm putting in. I just chopped up some large amount in a food processor, but so 1 cup and about 2 cups of ginger. And then roughly the same amount of garlic. I have probably a little less than that of garlic, so I'm just gonna put the whole thing in there. But you want your ginger and your garlic to be roughly the same amount. Now at this point I'm looking at this giant pile of stuff that I'm supposed to be browning in this oil and thinking that I might not have put enough oil in. So I'd say for the 2 cups of ginger and 2 cups of garlic, maybe more like 3/4 of a cup of oil. And I'm gonna go ahead and just add another 1/4 cup of oil right now. And that'll be fine. It's not gonna hurt anything to have a little cold oil in there.
Smells so good.
Yeah. So if you notice, you can see some of the fenugreek seeds in here. They're brown but not black. And that's kind of where you want them. Now we're going to start just kind of mixing this stuff around. Maybe turn up the heat a little bit. And a good rule of thumb that I've noticed is when your garlic and ginger starts to stick to the bottom of the pan and you start to get a really nice caramelized thing going on the bottom of the pan is when you want to add your tomatoes. So first though, before you add your tomatoes, after you've added your garlic and ginger, you want to add your mustard powder. Because the mustard powder also needs to get cooked in high heat on the oil. So, in the oil on high heat, yeah. So 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. You can see this is not an exact science here. 3 tablespoons. I'm just eyeballing it basically. 4 tablespoons. 5 tablespoons. Yeah, about 6 tablespoons. Basically all of my mustard that I have. But usually the little bottles of mustard are about 3 tablespoons, and that's about the amount that you want to use for a single batch. Is one of the little standard size spice things of powdered mustard. So yeah, just mix that in there. Kind of moving stuff around. Get it all kind of evenly distributed. Maybe take some dishes to the sink or whatever at this point. I'm going to leave my 1/2 cup measure out because I'm going to need it for the vinegar. Generally I put about as much vinegar as I do oil. So yeah, at this point you're starting to see a little bit of sticking to the bottom of the pan, which is good. You don't want to put in anything just yet. You want to wait for that stuff that's getting stuck to the bottom there to really start to turn a nice golden brown. So for now I'm just going to try it. Yeah, so you can see it starting to happen right there. For now I'm going to try and just move some of the more liquidy stuff on top of that, kind of scrape it up, keep it from happening as long as possible. But yeah, we want to get that nice caramelized glaze kind of all over the bottom of the pan here as much as possible, because that adds a lot of flavor. You don't want it to burn, so I recommend kind of shoving some garlic and ginger mix on top of the areas that are caramelizing the best, to just kind of give something for the heat to disperse into. Maybe moving it on the heat a little bit to heat some of the other areas better. On a gas stove it's a little bit easier. You get a little bit more even heat and you can see where the heat is going. On an electric stove it's kind of a little bit more difficult to get the heats that you want. So yeah, now you're starting to see this golden brown or even dark brown a little bit around on more and more of the pan. And that's what we want to see. We don't want it to get black or to burn, but we do want it to get nice and caramelized. At this point on an electric stove, I'm on high heat, so this is boiling oil. This is like 400 and some degrees, which is great because it really thoroughly cooks your spices quickly and gets you this nice caramelized goodness down here that is going to be deglazed by the tomatoes. And this is why I recommend that you have the tomatoes delidded beforehand, because the line between getting a nice caramelization on the bottom of your pan and totally burning the crap out of it is about 20 seconds, which is longer than it takes to find a can opener. So, yeah. And then you just kind of blend your tomatoes in. We're going to have to get an immersion blender out here because we've got stewed whole tomatoes instead of our usual diced tomatoes, but that's fine. Reduce the heat. Just kind of mash these in there a little bit. Stir it around, make sure that you're really scraping the bottom of the pan to get the bottom of the pan deglazed and get that good caramelized flavor into the dish. So at this point, I'm just gonna get my immersion blender out and blend up the tomatoes so that they're a little more part of the sauce. And then I'm gonna add my sriracha. Actually, I'll just do that right now so you can see about how much. Depends on your spice level. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a tablespoon. You can make it spicier individually or make the whole pot spicier. However you want to go, you can just taste it as you go. I like to get the sriracha in there early because it kind of blends with the other flavors nicely. So after I do the immersion blender and let it cook for a little while and let all the flavors kind of marinate for maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes or so on a low heat, then I'm going to go ahead and add my vinegar. So I'm going to probably add about 3/4 of a cup of vinegar because I added 3/4 of a cup of oil, and then it is done and is ready to eat. And I guess my other caution would be taste it. Don't go solely by smell because sometimes it smells a little bit funky and tastes absolutely delicious. So that is how you make a char, and I love you and I hope it helps. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.